Amen. All right. That little yellow piece of paper, as you know, it's for questions at the end. You can turn them in that. And go ahead and get in your Bible to 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. This is just our fifth week of 13 weeks, maybe 14. Not exactly sure just yet. Got a couple of things roaming around in my mind to do for the class. And so we're just kind of getting started. I congratulate you on being here, for investing in your marriage. I am continually amazed. I have people that call me with, marriage issues, but are they going to get up an hour early, come to the marriage class? Nah. We want all these things in our life, but we never want to make the effort to have them be so. And God wants to work in your life. God will do His part, but He's not going to force you to do what He wants, but He does invite you. So I appreciate you investing in your marriage. We have all kinds of different circumstances when we think about our marriages. On the surveys you turned in, 88% of you say that you're putting in 6 or more effort in your marriage relationship. And it was interesting, all those who are putting less than 6 out of 10 effort in their marriage were women. 1/3 of you say that your spouse is putting in less effort than you are. 12% of you say that your spouse is putting in more effort than you are. So about half of you say we're equally trying. And so, understand that kind of thing sort of varies from week to week to week, where you might feel like your spouse is trying and you're not, but when you did the surveys, that's where we were. And I just use that to remind everybody that every healthy relationship takes effort. And whenever you stop making effort at any relationship that matters, including your relationship with God, that relationship is not going to stay healthy. Each week we start, I give you a thought each week that I want to just lay as a foundational thought. Here's the one for this week. No one is destined to repeat the home you were raised in if it was bad. You can succeed. And no one is destined to have a great marriage if you were raised in a great home. You can fail. One of the best things you'll ever do in your life is just simply decide that you have 100% control over what kind of person you become, what kind of home you have. You decide that, not decisions other people made. As always, we're going to start our class answering questions that you turned in. These are linked to things we've discussed in the first 4 weeks. Some are just, a couple of them are just good old questions, and some are new ones that were turned in this time. Here's question number 1. Is it true that when the Bible tells wives to submit, it actually means respect your husband? Submission and reverence are 2 separate things. In Ephesians 5, when we studied that, if you remember, it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. And then a few verses later, it says, a wife, see that she reverence her husband. And so, no, they're not the same thing. They're 2 separate things. One of the things you really have to watch is that people always try to deconstruct biblical things they don't like. Whether it's Jesus is the only Savior and there's no other way to God. Whether it is hell is a real place with fire. Whether it is wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands. People try to deconstruct things they don't like. And you have to trust the Scriptures. Listen, the God who knows what it takes to live eternally also knows what it takes to live a blessed life. Question number 2, my husband has stopped leading our home. He comes to me for every decision. What should I do? The first thing I would do is ask yourself if your expectations for his leadership are reasonable at this point of life. And, if he's in his 20s, chances are that's a different expectation than if he's in his 40s. The second thing you ought to honestly ask yourself is, are you hard to lead? I would never, if I was a wife and I knew I was hard to lead, I would never be proud of that. That would be something that would be a part of my daily prayer life. Are you hard to lead? You know, and if he does come to you, you know, you don't have to give him an answer. You can always say, I don't care, what do you think? Or do what you want. See, understand, you have the power to make your husband a better man and a better leader, or you have the power to tear that down and take it out of him. And that a wife has that power in her hand. You can't make him succeed, but you can make him fail. And so, almost always in marriages, opposites attract. And so that if you are a more aggressive lady, chances are you're with a mellower man. And so just recognize that, and it'll help you help your husband. Question number 3, is it wrong to feel like you don't have enough physical time with your spouse? Our feelings are our feelings, and if there are feelings, then they're real. But just because our feelings are real doesn't mean that the facts behind them back up our feelings. And so if you have the feeling that you're not spending enough physical time together, then you need to look at the facts. Are we really spending enough time together? I don't think anybody, remember, if you're going to be a productive human being and you're going to be a faithful Christian, you're embracing a busy life. Everybody wants to be a productive human, everybody wants to be a faithful Christian, but they want to do it, have no demands in their schedule, and be able to just live a chill life. Doesn't work like that. And so if you're going to be a productive human and a faithful Christian, you're going to be busy, but you need to just look at your schedule honestly. If you're not spending enough time with your spouse, you don't change the amount of time you spend with them. I don't care how busy you are, I don't care how productive you want to be, you need time with your spouse. And we all schedule and make time for what we want, whatever that is. Question number 4, how do you get your spouse to do what you both agreed to delegate to each person? And if you remember, one of the things we talked about last week was dividing up the responsibilities in your house according to who has time and interest in those things. And so what I would say is you can't make your spouse do anything. What you can do is look at yourself and honestly face whether or not you're fulfilling your part. What you can do is pray for your spouse. What you can do is just decide, you know what, your spouse is just like you. They're not a machine. Some days they have bad days. Sometimes they had busier days and couldn't fill the responsibility that you agreed to. Just be patient. And sometimes the plan you have wasn't a good plan. Listen, when you make a budget, and you should have a budget, I don't think anybody ever makes their first budget and then it's, wow, you never change it. That's a part of growth, a part of doing what we do better. And so, okay, maybe your plan for how you divided them up wasn't a good plan, so revise it. Question number 5, what are some characteristics of a good leader as a husband? I believe in leadership of every sort and any sort. The most important quality is who you are. If you are who you are supposed to be, you will do what you're supposed to do. We are very focused as a culture, and probably even by nature, what should I do? And I'm not implying there aren't things a good leader does, but I am saying the most important quality is who you are. And so that's what you need to work on, first and foremost. Who are you? Remember, we have a public life, we have a private life, we have a secret life. The public life is the one everybody sees. Your private life is the one your spouse and children see. And your secret life is the life that God sees. And the more those things are all conformed to the image of Christ, the better it is. If you want to be a good leader, you need to build consistency. Honestly, I think, practically speaking, that is one of the most important things for people to be able to trust you. With your wife, your children, workplace. If your moods are like this, your demands are like this, you know what? You make yourself hard to follow. And question number 6, what should a husband do if the wife refuses to follow his leadership? You should, if your wife refuses to follow your leadership, you should unconditionally love your wife. Remember, that's not conditioned on whether she submits. What you should do, you should unconditionally pray for your wife. You should unconditionally do what you do in the house in the interests of your family. Remember, God has perfect leadership, and a lot of people don't follow his leadership. And so don't be shocked when your imperfect leadership is sometimes not followed. The best thing you can do is ask yourself this question. You know what? Am I providing good leadership? And face the answer and make it better. And if your wife still refuses to follow and it's genuine, you'll hear this 100 times in this class, make the issue a matter of prayer, pick a couple of clear examples, pick a good time, pick a good tone, have an adult conversation. That will help. Question number 7, our last question for today. How can I help my husband become a better leader? How can I encourage my husband to be a better leader? You need to begin by being honest with yourself. Are your expectations of him realistic for where he is? Have you made him fearful to make decisions? You know, listen, it's really easy if you criticize every decision for him to become someone who doesn't want to make decisions. And so again, you have got to be honest. Most of the things in our life that don't get fixed, it's because we're not honest about what's really going on and we don't want to make the effort to fix them. Hey, listen, God is interested in helping you. But he is not going to force his way in your life. By the way, what you're doing this morning is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself. You know, if who we are is the most important quality of behind what we do, what you're doing this morning is one of the most important things you can do. Because every time you go to a biblical church and listen with your heart, what you're doing is you're saying, God, work on my life. God, show me what's not conformed to the image of Christ. And when you do that, the better person you bring to you, wife or husband, just makes the situation better. Remember, Satan is the enemy of your marriage. And if he can't break it, he will try to make you unhappy in it. And does everybody know what this is? This is room deodorizer. Shockingly enough, pretty much everybody who doesn't bathe or goes out and works begins to stink. Would this work to make a stinky person better? Yeah, it would. I mean, would you rather smell like B.O. or Hawaiian Aloha? So that's not manly. Well, that's okay. You probably would still prefer that to B.O. But you know what? It's not designed for that. This is designed to make a room smell better. And your marriage is like that. It was designed by God. And when you try your own way to make your marriage what you think it should be, don't expect what God gives from marriage. God gives security, He gives love, He gives acceptance, He gives all those kinds of things in marriage, but you only get it God's way. Use things the way they're designed. You should be in 1 Peter chapter 3, beginning in verse 1. It says, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning, let it not be that outward adorning of the plaiting in the hair, the wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, and in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. For after this manner, in the old time, the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife, as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. We'll stop there. Now, this is the third section of the Scriptures where God spoke to us about the roles of husbands and wives in the home. He spoke to us very clearly in Ephesians 5. He spoke to us very clearly in Colossians 3. And then now he speaks to us again in 1 Peter chapter 3. Understand, there are very few things God repeats like this. That means this is not natural for us to do. And it also means that it's very important. And so that our roles in the home, they were not determined by Paul's chauvinism or Jewish or Roman custom. They were determined by our Creator. We see here in verse 1, just like we saw before, wives be in subjection to your own husbands, a wives to submit to her own husband's leadership. And by the way, if you're a wife here and you want the recipe for winning your husband either to Christ to be saved or winning him to be faithful, he gives it to you right there. It says that if any obey not the word, notice how you win them, that they may without the word be won by the conversation, that's behavior of the wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. You are not going to win and influence your husband quoting the Bible to him. Your testimony, the way you act, the way you talk, the way you behave, that will influence him far more than that. Listen, you cannot nag your husband into the kingdom of God. You cannot nag your husband into faithfulness to Christ. You may get his external conformity, but you will never get his heart. Notice in verse 7, a husband says, husbands dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, being heirs together of the grace of life. A husband here is commanded to honor his own wife. That's to highly value, to cherish, to treat with dignity. Say, why is a wife called the weaker vessel? I do not believe that this is referring to wives generally being weaker physically than their husbands. It is certainly not referring to wives being weaker intellectually or spiritually. You don't have to go very far to find wives who are way brighter and way more spiritual than their husband. Here's what I believe it's referring to. I believe a wife is a weaker vessel because she's harder to put together when you break her. Guys, we get over and move on from things much more easily than our wife does. And she's weaker in the sense that if you wound and break her trust, listen, she's not going to put it back in as quickly as you are. And so God warns us, hey, be careful about that. Dwell with them according to knowledge, knowing, hey, you know what? I can't just say anything I want to my wife. She's not just going to move on from this like I might. But it's the same basic principle now that we've seen 3 times, this role in the home. Somebody asked, if my kids don't respect my wife, does it mean that I'm not showing her the respect she deserves? That's a good question, but the answer is not always. Listen, if your children aren't respecting your wife, it ought to motivate you to first look at yourself and say, am I respecting my wife? Am I a bad example? Now, it's possible that they are not respecting their wife and you treat her well, but I will say this, and this is not our parenting class, listen, you ought to have your wife's back. And if your children are disrespectful to your wife and not disrespectful to you, you need to step in there. I remember our kid, as Wally, he's probably 5, and he yelled at his mother. Man, I remember I had him by the shirt, and I still remember having him up like this, and he's like this. You will not yell at your mother. Listen, she didn't like it, but I didn't take a survey. Listen, respect should start with you. God has repeated His plan, and you can not like God's plan. You can deconstruct God's plan. But the fact of the matter is that God picked the plan for marriage. He picked the plan for wives, and He says, listen, ladies, this is my plan for marriage. You pick the man that you enter into that relationship with. And you cannot like God placing husbands as the unconditional lover and leader in the home. You cannot like that all you want, but He let you pick him. And so we are... Basically, last week, we spent a whole week teaching very clearly what the Scriptures teach. And then last week we began applying this, ways we can practically apply this. And this is really, really important because a lot of people have the wrong idea, and it really hurts us on this. I mean, their idea is, well, the husband is the leader, he's the, the dictator and never wrong, and the wife is this groveling, no. See, that's why we're applying these things so that we can understand what this means and get some of these wrong ideas out of our head. So practical ways for husbands to provide better leadership and honor your wife. Here's number 3. We did 2 last week. Look out for the best interests of your wife and family as you make decisions. Your wife ought to feel like from your track record that when you make a decision, you really are looking out for your family. If you're the kind of person when you make a decision and there's extra money and you always buy something for yourself, that's bad leadership. She ought to feel like you're looking out for your family based on your track record. Practical ways for a wife to submit and reverence her own husband. Here's number 3. Quit trying to control him in subtle ways. Wives try to control their husbands sometimes with holding affections, sometimes with their bad attitudes, sometimes with their mood swings. And I just remind you, if you tear your husband down, you have torn down something God gave you to give you more stability and strength in life. Practical ways for husbands to provide better leadership and love your wife. Here's number 4. Give your wife veto power over major decisions. Listen, if you're going to be a good leader, you should always, if it's a major decision, you ought to seek her opinion. You ought to listen to her objections. You ought to listen to her. It's not okay for you to not care what she thinks. Now, it is okay for her to not care either way, but you ought to always ask. Brother, if you find yourself always doing what your wife wants and feels, she's in charge. Brother, if you find yourself never doing what your wife thinks and feels, you're not loving her like you should. Here's the thing about leadership. Many, many, many times you can do things 2 or 3 or 4 different ways and they're all okay. And you know what? When it's one of those situations, do what your wife wants. Do it her way. It's a way you show her love. Before we started Bible Baptist Church in Fairfield, I was an assistant pastor over in the Corrigan area, and I felt like God wanted us to move to Fairfield and start a church. I remember sitting in a restaurant telling Sharon what that meant. It meant that we probably would be selling our house, moving into an apartment after we'd lived in a house for 20 years. I said I didn't know how many people we'd have, starting with 0. I said I didn't know what building we'd have. I didn't know how it was going to go. And I still remember the tear coming down her eye when I told her that. But I also told her, I said, listen, I will not do this until you're okay with it. And several months passed. Now, I don't think God has to tell her that's what we're supposed to do. I do think that I need to wait until she has peace that this is the thing we're supposed to do. And it was probably 5 or 6 months later. She came to me and said, I have peace with this. I resigned the next day. Listen, other than salvation and getting married and starting a family, that's probably the most important decision we ever made. And my wife had veto power over it. Listen, when things are not in the Scriptures, work as a team on this. It's one of the ways you lead your home and love your wife. Practical ways for a wife to submit and reverence her own husband. Here's number 4. Be careful giving your opinion after he's decided what to do. That's especially true in public and especially true in front of the children. I'm not implying you don't talk after you've made decisions and things like that. But when you forget that almost always when you make a decision, there's a lot you don't know how things are going to turn out. Hindsight is 20/20. Nobody gets to make decisions knowing how things are going to turn out. And so you got to be really careful what you're criticizing. Someone turned in the question, how do I keep quiet after my husband makes bad choices even after I give my opinion? Do you realize what's at the root of that question? He didn't do my opinion, therefore he didn't listen. See, we feel like if I give my opinion, then they should do what I said. But that's not following leadership. That's you wanting to be the leader. Give your opinion. And you know what? Husbands, if your wife gives your opinion, you ought to consider it. That's a part of loving her and respecting her. And offering your opinion less will make each time you offer it mean more. I'm just letting that sink in. Because listen, opinions are like belly buttons, man. We all got them. And you don't have to offer them all the time. Practical ways for husbands to provide better leadership and love and honor her wife. Here's number 5. Develop a pattern of wisdom, godliness, and thoughtfulness to make it easier for your wife to submit to you. Listen, I would hate for the only reason my wife submits to my authority is because she's supposed to. Now, that's enough of a reason. But what I want is I want to provide enough leadership and have a track record where my wife feels like, you know what, he loves me, he's looking out for our family, he's trying to follow God. Listen, it's hard to submit. And by the way, submitting to your own husbands is not the only thing we submit to in the New Testament. There's like 5 separate things we're told to submit to. Submission is linked with humility. And refusal to submit is linked with pride. And so, guys, make it as easy as possible for your wife to follow your leadership. You help her out in that. Number 5, for ways for wives to apply submission to her own husband. Here's number 5. Let him have some of his own space and time. He will be a better and more interesting man for that. You know what? You ought to encourage your wife's relationships with other spiritual ladies. And ladies, you ought to encourage your husband's relationship with other spiritually minded men. Listen, encourage him to do ministry. You say, well, that's time he could have with me. Okay. It's good for him. It's good for his relationship with God. I'm not telling him to work 40 hours in ministry. It's good for him. Encourage him in that. Practical ways for husbands to better provide leadership. Be careful how you criticize or correct your wife and what she does. See, because we have this idea that being the leader of the home means I'm supposed to correct everything, we don't handle leadership well. She is not your child. She is not your employee. She's your lover and your friend, and she's your bride. But if you're going to lead your home, there's going to be times when you feel like you need to speak to your wife about something that you're not happy about. And you need to, you need, I can't say that in church. You need to get some courage. You need to get some intestines. All right? Pick a good time. Pick a good tone. Bring up the issue. Don't expect her to say, wow, thank you for correcting me. All right? Adults don't do that usually. But humble, faithful Christians, when they let sink in what you talk to them about, you know, it'll be okay. Now, if you do that all the time, that's not good leadership. But sometimes you need to do it. For ladies, ways to follow and submit to your husband's authority. Here's the last one, number 6. Pray for him and his leadership as if everything depended on your prayers. Hey, listen, don't underestimate the support and prayers of a godly, submissive wife. I'll tell you, one of the things that always motivates me is my wife being happy. My wife thinking well of my leadership. It matters a lot to me. A lot. That I would not disappoint my wife. It matters a lot. And some of you other men in here, you're like that too. And wives, you don't realize that. And understand, I'm 65. I've had a lot of time to work on some of this stuff, and some of you all are in your early 20s and mid-20s, and you just need to work on this stuff. Which gets us, I'll go to Proverbs chapter 11. We're just practically applying what we taught 2 weeks ago and have touched on last week and this week about our roles in the home. Basically our order in here is next week, Lord willing anyway, we're going to talk about communication. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about the physical relationship of a husband and wife. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about forgiveness. Because in all of these areas, whether it's filling your role in the home or failing to communicate or not being happy with each other physically, forgiveness is going to be a part of a healthy home. And so that's our plan in here. But I want to close today. We talked about advice for husbands and wife. I want to close with some practical advice for you as a couple. Notice in Proverbs 11, verse 14, it says, "Where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there's safety." Listen, you getting wise counsel, there's safety in that. It is proud people who don't ever ask anybody's opinion who might actually help them in some area. Turn up a couple pages of Proverbs 15, verse 22. It says, "Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitudes of counselors, they are established." When you get wise counsel, when you have 2 or 3 wise people you got wise counsel from, that establishes something. If you have 2 or 3 people you ask something to and they all have a different opinion, you probably know, wow, this is not very clear. You ask 2 or 3 godly, seasoned people their opinion, and if they all are said the same thing, that pretty much establishes that, and it'll help you. And so that's what I'm going to do here for I've got 6 minutes. Here's the first thing as a couple. Number 1, remember, being good at these roles is a gradual process. They require personal growth. They require spiritual growth. Okay? And so, guys, give your wife a break. Ladies, give your husband a break. If they're growing and heading in the right direction, it's going to be all right. Here's number 2. Get outside counsel before things get too bad. If I was picking a reason why people divorce, I would often say they were proud and refused to try to get help when they realized things were not going well. Listen, earlier in the process, try to get help. Listen, you make your own decisions. I've had people in my life, I'm making some big financial decision. I have a couple people in my life, I really think they're godly people, they're good with money. I always ask them their opinion. We have something big that's going on here. I've got a couple pastors who I think are seasoned, godly men. I'll say, hey, this is going on, what do you think? Say, why? Aren't you smart enough to make your own decision? I am making my own decision. I'm smart enough to know that I'm way smarter asking people's opinions. And so get wise counsel. Agree on someone you both trust with your personal information. I honestly believe every person ought to have somebody you've agreed on to go to. In your surveys, 36% of you, that's 1/3 of you, have someone you and your spouse agreed on you can talk to. I think that's really unwise. 44% of you said that one or the other of you had violated your trust by talking to someone that you didn't want to know something. And that's you being aware of it. That number's probably really, really higher. Listen, you ought to agree on somebody. Hey, you know what? If you need to talk to somebody, talk to this person. That when you violate trust in your marriage, it's something you have to rebuild. Hard to rebuild. Don't break it. Again, if you were in my premarital counseling, I'd talk to you about this. And if you weren't, I'm talking to you about it now. Find someone you can both agree on that your spouse partner can talk to. Here's number 3. Be a united front in front of your children. And obviously the details of this are for the parenting class, but you know what? You ought to be defending one another as you work through, all the issues of your humanity. And listen, life is messy. It's really easy in front of a class and in a church to say, do this, do this, do this. You know what? And we should. But life is messy, man. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes the situation is a lot more gray than black and white. And be a united front. Get wise counsel. Here's number 4. Focus on your spouse's strengths instead of their weaknesses when you think about your spouse. Here, Satan is an expert at getting us to see what's wrong with stuff. What's wrong in the church? What's wrong with the preacher? What's wrong with the deacons? What's wrong with my wife? What's wrong with my kids? Hey, listen, when you get focused on what's wrong, you're going to always think wrong. You need to, when it comes to thinking about your spouse and things, focus on what's good. Think about what you can do to make the situation better, because you can only control yourself. Hey, listen, the reason people cheat, apart from this base issue of they weren't making healthy effort with each other in the home, is that Satan causes you to see your spouse's weaknesses and then puts somebody in the circle of your life who has strengths in those areas and makes you think that this person is so much better than the spouse you have. Listen, when you get married, everybody's feet are cold in the evening and their breath is stanky in the morning. You know that. And that's why people from a distance always look better. Hey, listen, if you knew me like my wife knew me, you'd say, he's a tough guy to be married to. And you know what? I think the same thing about y'all. But it's because it's distance issue. Practical advice for both. Number 5, make God a priority in your life because He has a great plan for your home. And then the last thing, just turn to, it's right there, Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 12, because I only have 50 seconds. It says, hatred stirreth up strife, but love covereth all sins. Work hard at becoming a good forgiver. You know, when you love them, you're going to have to work through forgiving them. They're going to fail you. Listen, the best intentioned people fail. I have great intentions as a pastor and as a friend, and I fail. I can't keep up with what I wish I were. Only Jesus. And so we just got to learn to forgive each other. And I'm going to stop. I'm out of time. You should have that little yellow paper. Write something on it, a question, a snide remark, a smiley face, some sample of your wonderful artwork. Just write something on it, drop it in there, and God bless you. You're dismissed.